It's November now, and with Halloween past, people have started thinking about what to get their friends for Christmas. As in years past, there's a huge selection of digital devices: MP3 players, smartphones, ebook readers, and tablets to buy as gifts. And also, as in years past, the prices have gone down while the capabilities have increased. And many of you will be thinking about getting one of these devices for someone as a gift. But before you do this, ask yourself this important question. Is this actually something this person would want? Or is it something I think would be cool for them to have and would just frustrate both of us in the long run? Because remember, you will end up being tech support. So if you don't want to end up dealing with the ghost of Christmas presents, ask yourself these questions before you run out and buy some digital device for someone. Really, if the person you're thinking about doesn't even use email, then with rare exceptions, a digital device is probably not the best gift to give. After all, if they don't have the patience and motivation to use email, then a digital device is likely to be one more thing they don't want to bother with. If this person has drooled over someone else's smartphone, ebook reader, MP3 player, or tablet, then a digital device is probably a good gift for them. If, on the other hand, you've shown them yours and they've been decidedly uninterested, then don't assume that giving them their own would suddenly change things. It likely won't. If so, you need to come to grips with the fact that most people aren't like that and will only decide that they need a gadget when they see some well-demonstrated need for it. They have no need to be one of the cool kids by having the latest device that they don't even know how to use. To your mind, they may still be using a quill pen and an ink bottle, but if it works for them, perhaps you should just let them be. Still not sure? Well, it wouldn't hurt to ask. Sure, it may ruin the surprise a little bit, but it would definitely cut down on the number of unhappy people we see every January who come in to grudgingly learn how to use this abomination that was foisted upon them by their children. But what if you do know? Well then, there are a variety of devices and types of devices to choose from, and I'll go over them with you here. Starting with pocket-sized devices. Now I know that some of you are wondering why anyone would want a pocket-sized device. How can you read anything on a screen that small? Actually, before the iPad was invented, I read a number of ebooks on my iPod Touch, and while it did seem like I was turning the page after every paragraph, it wasn't exactly a terrible experience. But the big thing that might, and I say might, just turn a non-user into a user, is audiobooks. If your friend loves listening to audiobooks, and has gone through our entire collection of CD audiobooks, playaways, and before that, books on tape, then maybe a pocket device is just what they need so that they can start working on the almost 5,000 digital audiobooks we have using the Overdrive app, which is available for devices like the iPhone, the iPod Touch, and the iPad, which run Apple's iOS, which means iPhone operating system, and Android devices like the Kindle Fire family, the Samsung Galaxy family of tablets, and any number of smartphones. Pocket-sized devices include the iPod Touch, its big brother the iPhone, the new Kindle Fire tablet, and, surprise, surprise, your basic Android phone. I'd like to talk about the Android phone first. The Android phone was a big surprise to me because I had never thought of them as being able to be used as a simple pocket-sized device until sometime back in October. That's when I realized that maybe you could buy an inexpensive Android phone, not connected to any phone service, and still have most of the functionality of an iPod Touch. After all, many of the same apps are available for each of them, and when you consider the $60 price of an inexpensive Android to the $199 price of the least expensive iPod Touch, unless your friend is locked into Apple's ecosystem because of previous purchases through the iTunes Store, this might just work out. One of the advantages of an Android phone is that if your friend is still using an old flip phone, or no phone at all, they might actually be tempted to use this as a phone once they get used to using it for other things. But before you buy one for them, check to see who their carrier is, so that you can get one that's compatible with their service. On the other side of the scale of Android pocket-sized devices is a relatively new Kindle Fire HD6. They say it's pocket-sized, but I'm not certain that I'd want to put something that big in my pocket. But in addition to the problem of size, even though this is technically an Android device, it's a walled garden of an Android device, and Amazon has set it up so that you can only use their App Store and not the standard Google Play Store. This means that they won't allow you to download certain things, like the Nook or 3M Cloud apps, which come from competitors. Now we enter the land of Apple, and here there are two choices: the $199 iPod Touch and the $99 iPhone. But don't let those shelf prices mislead you, because the $99 you would pay for the iPhone is the price for a locked phone with a potentially expensive 2-year contract. If you were to buy the unlocked phone with no contract, it would cost you $549. If your friend merely wants to listen to audiobooks, play some music, and run a few apps, but not talk on the phone, especially if they have a cheap phone of their own already, then the iPod Touch is the way to go. Now it's time to talk about the simple, classic black and white ebook readers like the original Kindle and Nook. Don't let the term simple reader mislead you. They're not necessarily the simplest devices to use. This name came from Barnes & Noble calling their original device the Simple Touch. The most important thing about these two devices is that they both have touch screens. You can find older Kindles for less that don't have the touch screen, but I wouldn't go there. I wouldn't do that to a person who's just starting out trying to use one of these. Everyone these days is used to using touchscreens, so why would you want to put this person back in the Stone Age just to save a little money? Touchscreens are the way to go. Both of these devices work with our Overdrive system for borrowing books, but the Kindle can work wirelessly and doesn't require the person to actually own their own computer. The Nook, on the other hand, requires a user to go through a process called sideloading, where you attach it to a computer and then drag the files over. Once again, more work than I think you should put a newbie through, and for that reason, when it comes to simple readers, I definitely recommend the Kindle over the Nook. Now let's talk about tablets. Okay, so what would anyone want a tablet for when a simple ebook reader would do? Well, there's color, which is good for magazines, or watching movies, or playing games, discovering new music, or, well, reading books. And they're basically just larger versions of their pocket-sized cousins. In fact, when the iPad first came out, I called it the iPod Touch on steroids. But let's take a look at some of the tablets out there. As with the pocket-sized devices, they come in two flavors: Android devices and iPads. Let's look at the Android tablets first. I didn't mention this before, but the Android mobile operating system was developed by Google to be a direct competitor with Apple's iPhone operating system. They've done a pretty good job at it, and as a result, there are a lot of smartphones out there now that have many of the same capabilities as Apple's iPhone, but at a fraction of the price. Well, just as Apple's iPhone operating system also runs their iPads, the Android operating system also runs on a large number of tablets. There are many Android tablets to choose from big names you've heard of, and others from little companies you haven't. Local tech writer Al Fasholt has recommended a $79 tablet from a company called Nextbook that I haven't had a chance to get my hands on to play with for any length of time, so I'm reserving judgment on it, even though a number of people have come in with them and said that they loved them. You can get these at Walmart. Other tablets consider, from big-name companies, are members of the Kindle Fire family, the Samsung Galaxy family, and the Nook tablet. Let's take a look at them. The Kindle Fire is probably the best known of the Android tablets because of its reputation as an ebook reader. The HD7 and HDX are both pretty good larger-sized devices, but they suffer from the same problem of being walled gardens that the HD6 suffers from. If you're going to get an Android tablet, you're better off getting one that's agnostic and doesn't care whose software you download. So with that in mind, I have two tablets to recommend that are actually one. The first is a Samsung Galaxy Tab 4, and the second is the Nook tablet from Barnes & Noble. The reason that I say that there are two tablets that are actually one is because the Nook tablet is really just a Galaxy Tab 4 that's been co-branded with Barnes & Noble and set up to act like a Nook by default. And yet, one very important thing about the Nook tablet is that despite the way that Amazon chooses to play the game, the Barnes & Noble version of the Galaxy Tab is not a walled garden. In fact, you can install Amazon's Kindle app with absolutely no problem, making this device from Barnes & Noble not only capable of reading books you've purchased from them, but from Amazon too. No worrying about corporate rivalries here. So which of these two twins of tablets do I recommend over the other? It's the co-branded Nook version. Why? Well, aside from the bundled offers of free books and magazines, but read the fine print carefully on those, there are over 600 Barnes & Noble locations all over the country, in addition to the two right here in Onondaga County. And you can get tech support at these places just by walking in the door. That's pretty good. And this brings us to the iPad family. These have become, if not the most popular, the most well-known tablets out there, and pretty much the only choice if you or your friend are locked into the Apple ecosystem. They have the same advantage as a generic Android device, in that since they're not marketed by any one bookseller, they're agnostic, and don't care whose reader or listening software you run. So, what should you get? It all depends. There is no one-size-fits-all answer. It all depends on the person you want to buy for, what their experience is, what you think they want to do with it, and how much you want to spend. And remember, for some people, the best gift will still be a gift card, so they can choose the device or plain old book that they want. At least, in getting one of these, you will have recognized how much they love to read. Well, that's it, folks. If you have any questions, feel free to stop by and visit me at the Liverpool Public Library.